Welcome, everyone.
Welcome.
I'm Randy Speck. I'm chair of ANC 34G, and I want to welcome you on behalf of our commission and all of the community in Chevy Chase. Those of us who live and shop in Chevy Chase and use the community center and library are proud of our neighborhood, but we know it can be even better. While we have many small businesses that have served us for years, we know that they will benefit from having more customers nearby and the vibrancy that those residents will bring to the avenue. We value and we want to preserve the best attributes of our community that make it most attractive. But we also want to incorporate a positive vision for the future. In particular, we want to become more inclusive and diverse so that we can share the benefits of this community more broadly. Our hope for this campus you see around you, is that it will become an iconic symbol of the Chevy Chase gateway into the district, a town center that is as diverse and inclusive as the district itself. A modern community center will be a gathering place for cultural, athletic, social, and civic activities that serve the entire range of our community. The library will continue the district's recent history of architecturally distinctive facilities that are keyed to the 21st century. Most importantly, we can take advantage of this public space to add housing with a large component of workforce and deeply affordable housing so that we can do our part in addressing the district's housing crisis. From the beginning, this has been a community-driven initiative. We look forward to continuing to work with the community to convey its needs and desires to the district agencies so that we can make these ambitious goals a reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Joseph Daniels. I serve as the lead pastor of the Emory Fellowship, the Emory United Methodist Church on Georgia Avenue in Ward 4 in the Brightwood neighborhood, D.C. It is an honor and privilege to be here with you this morning. I had a talk with the Lord this morning, and the Lord provided this wonderful weather for all of us. I'm just playing. Just playing. But it is so great to be with you and to be able to stand here as a witness to the power of the faith-based community getting involved in truly affordable housing for our residents in the District of Columbia. And I give God thanks to be able to introduce the individual who has spearheaded all of this in a great and wonderful way. Congregation I serve, Emory, in 2019, we opened the Beacon Center, which is a project, a 99-unit affordable rental housing project, fully affordable for residents who are being displaced from the District of Columbia. We did it in partnership with our Brightwood community, and so everybody was involved. And it is a spectacle, it is a beautiful, beautiful sight of what can happen when private sector, government sector, and public sector come together to really bring about effective change. And so I give God thanks for the vision of this city. I give God thanks for the woman I'm about to introduce, because we would not be where we were in Brightwood if it weren't for her visionary, strong, and bold leadership to the vision that our congregation had. And so I am honored and privileged to introduce the mayor of the District of Columbia, Mayor Muriel Bowser.
Thank you. Well, good morning, Chevy Chase. And good morning, D.C. I am just so delighted to be here with members of my team. I want to thank you, Pastor Daniels. I want to thank, and you'll hear from some of them, the Deputy Mayor for Economic Development, John Felchicchio, the Director of the Office of Planning, Andrew Trublay, the Director of Housing and Community Development, Drew Hubbard, the Director of the Department of Disability Services, Andrew Reese, and the Executive Director of DC Public Libraries, Rich Reyes Gavlin. Please give them a big round of applause. And I also want to acknowledge the chairman of ANC 34G and the commissioners of ANC 34G and the community leaders of Chevy Chase. I know this campus very well. It was my privilege to represent Ward 4 for almost 8 years on the council, and it's been my privilege to be your mayor for almost 8 years. And in that entire time, we have been focused on how we can make Washington, D.C. more affordable for more people. And we are a city, and we're privileged that we are a growing city. We are a city that has a lot of jobs and opportunity, and people want to live here and start their businesses here. And what that means when you're a city in hot demand is the cost of housing goes up and up and up. So our job for the last 7 years has been to focus on how we can create more affordable housing for Washingtonians and how more Washingtonians can have higher wages, better jobs, better careers in order that they may afford an amazing life for themselves and their children right here in Washington, D.C. And it's also our challenge to make that happen across all 8 wards of Washington, D.C. And we set a goal, and we were the first in the nation to do it, to set a goal to achieve 36,000 new units by 2025, and to make sure that we designated within those 36,000 units a significant chunk that would be affordable. This is what sets us apart from the rest of the nation. We didn't just set a goal and hope that it happened, or even, Pastor, prayed that it happened. We had to have a vision for how it would happen. And without a vision, the Bible says, the people will perish. So what we're talking about today is part of that vision. How we get to the 36,000 units, how we make sure that more than 12,000 are below market value, and how we do it across all 8 wards. Are you with me on that, Washington? I know you're with me on that. We're also here to say, lest Randy gets up from his seat, how we transform this beautiful campus in Chevy Chase. I have worked on a lot of projects in Chevy Chase and for Chevy Chase, including transforming the beautiful Lafayette Elementary School and the campus that surrounds it with the addition of a new recreation center and playground space with Samantha, our former commissioner, and we're very proud of that. We've also just announced that we're helping to transform a major corridor that serves this part of Chevy Chase and all down Connecticut Avenue, and making sure that it is an avenue that reflects safety in our city, all modes in our city, and the future of our city. So we're very proud of that. And today, we're also going to highlight our housing equity report and the roadmap to how we get to our 36,000 units across all 8 wards of Washington, D.C. I also, before I turn over the podium to my colleagues in DMPAD and OP, who are going to speak specifically about this part of the city and this planning area, I want to acknowledge a public servant who has provided extremely great service to D.C. government and to me and my administration, who is moving on from D.C. government, and he's moving on having achieved a lot of great successes, including working with the council to get the comprehensive plan amendment passed through. So join me in appreciating Andrew Trublay. So with that, let me turn it over to Deputy Mayor Falchicchio.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you all for being here today. So this part of the program is a little bit participatory, all right? So it's a very easy quiz. But I need folks to raise their hand and keep it up if you're in that group. So how many people have lived in D.C. all their life, like Mayor Bowser? And if you have, keep your hands up, okay? And how many have lived in D.C. for more than 20 years? Okay, wow. And how many people, keep those hands up. If you're in that group, keep your hands up. And how many have been here for less than 5? And then everybody in between. All right, so everybody has their hands up, right? Pastor Daniels, you're the witness? All right. So with those hands still up, wait, we need those hands up. So now I'm going to close my eyes, and Pastor Daniels, help me be the judge here. How many people have all the answers for how to get to more affordable housing? There's a couple. Okay, there's a couple. All right, so here's what we'll do. We're going to work together to read this roadmap, right? And what this roadmap does is it actually outlines for us how in Rock Creek West we achieve what the mayor laid out in 2019. We have a goal of creating 1,990 affordable units of housing in Rock Creek West, right? So it's going to take all of us to do it. And I was asked this week, so why Rock Creek West? Why do you need a roadmap for Rock Creek West? And it's because our goal is so great, and the impact of it. If you have your roadmap, right? We're going to use this. I told you this was participatory. If you go to page 8, and on page 8 you actually see some work that we did with Opportunity Insights at Harvard University that shows that families of the same income, whether they live in a high opportunity area, one with medium opportunity or low opportunity, that the ones in high opportunity, those families will have success greater because they lived in a high opportunity area. Now think about where we are, right? So on Connecticut Avenue, you have great modes of transportation. You have great retail. There's jobs around here. You have great community amenities, which Rich is going to make sure are even greater when they're redesigned. So this is a high opportunity area. So what we have to do is we have to make sure that we hit the mayor's goal of 1,990 units of affordable housing by 2025 because it'll make an impact on the families who will live here, right? So sometimes we get caught up, and I know I see the commissioner looking at me, in the small area plan and the process for the small area plan. But what we have to keep in mind is the great impact that it will have on the families that ultimately live right here on this site, right? So that's what we're here to talk about today. So the mayor mentioned that in 2019, she made us the first city in the country to have a goal by neighborhood for the creation of affordable housing. And within that, she also laid out that we wanted to build 36,000 new homes in the district and 12,000 affordable, right? So 36,000 new homes, 12,000 affordable. So I'm going to give you an update on where we are since 2019. So in terms of building new homes, we've actually built 20,251 new homes. I see someone writing that down. That means we're 56% of the way there, right? But the reason why we need a roadmap is because we have to have some intentionality, we have to have investment, and we have to have imagination in how we get there. Because on the affordable goal, we still have a little ways to go. We have a overall goal of 12,000, and so far, we've built, and we should all be proud of this, 3,578 units of affordable housing. So that means we're about 30% of the way there. So we have more work to do. So Andrew Trublay, although he's leaving us this month, has laid out a roadmap for us to get there. And what you'll see in this roadmap is all the opportunities. So Andrew's going to talk about it a little bit more, and then Drew Hubbard's going to come up and talk to you about a new tool that we're going to unveil to help us in Rock Creek West. And I'd also like to say that we don't do any of this alone. So we do this, what I convened when I became deputy mayor was the mayor said, get the housing agencies together. So we have the housing agency partners, which meet the first Friday of every month. Chris Donald, I see him from the DC Housing Finance Agency. When we want to actually build on this site, we're going to go to Chris as our bank to help us get there. So Chris is very important in this role. So I wanted to give him a shout out too. But with that, I want to bring up one of the housing agency partners, and that's from the Office of Planning, Andrew Trublay.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Mayor. 2 years ago, last week, many of us gathered at the Wilson High School for a community conversation on housing that focused on how historical land use policies continue to impact housing opportunities across the district and in this neighborhood. More than 300 people participated in the event, both in person and via live stream, and this was even before COVID. We saw both the magnitude of the inequities and the incredible opportunity we had to address them, especially in neighborhoods that had, in the past, not supported housing. Since then, we have continued to work with residents and stakeholders, and I see many of you here, to explore how to undo the legacy of segregation and inequity of these policies. I have personally been to dozens of meetings here in Rock Creek West and know that my team and others have spent even more time working with residents and leaders in Rock Creek West, including Commissioner Speck. As the mayor and deputy mayor shared, we have made tremendous progress towards our housing goals and housing equity goals through efforts like the updated comprehensive plan, the housing equity report, unparalleled investments in the Housing Production Trust Fund, a new tax abatement for affordable housing in high opportunity areas like here, and critical updates to our inclusionary zoning regulations to create more affordable housing in an informed way that will not hamper the critical need to produce housing at all income levels across all 8 wards of the district. In high opportunity neighborhoods such as this one and others in the Rock Creek West planning area, reaching these affordable housing goals laid out in the Mayor's Housing Equity Report will allow our residents with lower incomes to have the opportunity to be in neighborhoods with critical services and amenities, which has been shown, as the Deputy Mayor mentioned, to have long-term positive impacts on outcomes from income to health. The updated comprehensive plan, which was enacted in August, includes important changes to the future land use map, which is the document that guides how we use our land, that supports more much-needed housing and affordable housing across the district, but especially in Rock Creek West's major corridors like Wisconsin Avenue and Connecticut Avenue. Updates to the inclusionary zoning regulations, what we call IZ Plus and IZXL, have ensured higher affordability levels when properties take advantage of this additional density through a zone change, and they also expanded current inclusionary zoning regulations to areas of the district and types of buildings that were previously exempted. Today, we are releasing the Rock Creek West Roadmap, which builds on all of this work and ties it together. And it builds especially on the housing equity goals in the updated comp plan to provide a clearer picture of how we can, in partnership, meet and exceed the mayor's housing goals. If the mayor's equity goals are what we need to achieve, this helps fill the gap in how we get there. The roadmap outlines how, if the government, residents, leaders, landowners, and stakeholders like faith-based institutions work together, we can produce more than 2,000 units of affordable housing in Rock Creek West. The roadmap focuses on 3 approaches to achieve our goals. First, financial subsidies, such as the Housing Production Trust Fund and the high needs area tax abatement, will support the largest share of affordable opportunities through both new construction and converting or preserving existing unrestricted units as affordable units for low-income households. There you go. Second, the updated comprehensive plan created various opportunities along Wisconsin and Connecticut avenues to add housing. When paired with the updated inclusionary zoning policies I mentioned, they will be able to support additional critical affordable housing. Already, OP has, in alignment with efforts at DHCD, the Deputy Mayor's Office, and the Mayor's Office, initiated a faith-based zoning initiative to recommend amendments to the zoning regulations that allow for development of affordable housing on properties owned by faith-based institutions. While it has been focused to date on opportunities in Wards 6, 7, and 8, we hope to have the opportunity to partner with interested faith-based institutions in neighborhoods like this. Third, the roadmap contemplates housing and affordable housing at several key publicly and privately owned opportunity sites in Rock Creek West, such as here at the Chevy Chase Library and Community Center, as well as sites like the vacant Lord & Taylor site in Friendship Heights. In addition to exploring how each of these 3 approaches can contribute to affordable housing to Rock Creek West, the roadmap demonstrates how ongoing place-based planning efforts will be a critical component of allowing more housing through greater density while also ensuring neighborhood engagement, compatible design, inclusive public spaces, and more vibrant corridors. The roadmap estimates that about 70% of the likely new affordable housing units will be located in areas that the comp plan calls future planning analysis areas along Wisconsin and Connecticut Avenue. We have three place-based efforts in these planning areas that have already started or are about to commence. To further the comp plan's updates through community outreach and engagement activities such as design charrettes, surveys, and outreach activities to receive community feedback. These efforts can then guide critical zoning changes for specific sites and areas to allow for more housing and affordable housing. Already, OP has been working with the Chevy Chase community for over a year to develop a small area plan that advances more equitable and environmentally sustainable growth along the Connecticut Avenue Gateway corridor. The Connecticut Avenue Development Guidelines will explore how to support additional housing opportunities in the Woodley and Cleveland Park areas, which include historic districts. This effort will include collaboration with the Historic Preservation Review Board to determine how design can both support the historic districts while also utilizing new land use designations provided in the comp plan for more housing. Finally, the Wisconsin Avenue Development Framework will examine the corridor for opportunities to improve housing, which will also support more vibrancy, amenities, and retail. The study will examine key sites, such as the WMATA Western Bus Garage, for opportunities to maximize affordable housing and recommend appropriate zoning along this high opportunity, high and medium density corridor. We look forward to next steps in all of these. In Chevy Chase, we'll be at Deal Middle School on January 22nd for a design workshop to focus on how building and public space design elements can help realize the small area plan's vision and goals. And we look forward to working with all of you in our upcoming planning efforts across all of these. You can sign up to follow our efforts as they kick off in 2022 or continue at planning.dc.gov. Each of these efforts are critical to bring together various neighbors and stakeholders to achieve bold Rock Creek West housing goals. The roadmap also lays out opportunities outside of the planning areas, from major federal sites to faith-based institutions to affordable accessory apartments that will be important to reaching our goals. The roadmap also includes a call to action for all of us who care most about equity and opportunity for all of our district neighbors. Whether you are a resident, a housing provider, a faith-based institution, a service provider, or a combination of all of these things, the roadmap shows how you can play a role to make our housing equity goals a reality. And if I were to sum up what the roadmap says in a bullet point, I think it says that we need to use every tool to pursue every site and to engage every resident, landowner, and partner to reach our ambitious goals. As many of you know, and as the mayor shared, I will be stepping down from this role at the end of the month. So with this as the last time at the podium with my mayor, I must ask for your indulgence for a brief thank you moment. It has been the honor of a lifetime to serve in this role, and I would not be able to leave on such a high note without so many people. First, I want to take the opportunity to thank all the residents, partners, and stakeholders that I've had the pleasure of working with during my time as director and in my longer DC government career. I know not everybody always agrees with everything that the Office of Planning does, but I have found that even in moments of sometimes intense disagreement, our partners and residents rarely ever disagreeable, and we find ways of continuing to work together towards the best outcomes. I also want to thank Deputy Mayor Falchicchio, who has been a key partner and supporter for all of this housing work, who brought OP in as a housing agency, and who supported me personally in both of my roles in the Bowser administration. I must also thank the tireless and incredibly talented staff of the Office of Planning, many of whom are standing to my left, who have pushed through numerous critical priorities, often at the same time. Some of you may remember the day that we released both a public review draft of the comp plan and the housing equity report to ensure that we are providing the necessary support for the district's most pressing priorities and needs. I knew I could start my next chapter because the entire staff, and including an immensely talented leadership team, will be there to continue to push the agency's work to new heights. And most of all, I must thank you, Mayor Bowser, who you put your trust in me to take this role, and your vision and support have been the fuel that powered all of our work. When I started at OP, I could never have imagined that we would come to accomplish in 3 years, including around housing, comp plan update, COVID-19 response and recovery, all of which was made possible by your exceptional leadership. Thank you. I look forward to finding ways to support this critical work as a resident. And now I'd like to introduce Interim Director Hubbard to discuss the affordable housing investments in faith-based institutions.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm Drew Hubbard, the Interim Director of the DC Department of Housing and Community Development. And let me start by thanking Mayor Bowser and Deputy Mayor Falchicchio. And I want to thank them because they realize that, just as important as planning, you have to actually resource these plans and put tools in place to actually bring them to fruition. The mayor demonstrated that from her first days in office when she committed to and doubled the amount in the Housing Production Trust Fund and committed to having at least $100 million of new money in the trust fund every year. But she didn't stop there. If you know our budget this year, the mayor went very, very big. We have $400 million in the trust fund this year. So I get to bring this a little bit full circle. I feel like Pastor took us a bit to church this morning. So I'm here with my leader and my mayor, but it also happens that Pastor Daniels is my pastor. I am a member of Emory Fellowship, And so I'm glad to be here with one of my spiritual leaders too. It's going to really be apparent how those things kind of come together. He hit it on the head. When you have vision at the city level, at the public level, matched with our faith community, you can do big things. So that's what I'm here to talk about. We are on the cusp. Tomorrow, my office will be releasing a new RFA for a faith-based initiative to put $1 million out on the street for faith houses who are looking to produce housing on the land that they own. Much like Pastor Daniels talked about with Emory, there are any number of churches around the city that have valuable land, and it directly aligns with their mission as people of faith to produce housing for those that most need it. So, as I said, starting tomorrow, an RFP will be released on our website for a faith-based housing request for applications. And exactly what we're looking for are applicants capable of structuring, administering, and funding a program to support faith-based institutions such as churches, synagogues, mosques, and others in developing affordable housing for our residents. Many faith-based institutions own real estate throughout the district, many in the same planning areas with the most ambitious housing goals, but they lack the resources, and I don't mean financial, but just the knowledge and the ability to really make that jump into this space. So this is really looking at helping faith institutions look at pre-development activities and really getting that support to make the decision to contribute to affordable housing in this city. The Urban Institute estimates that faith-based institutions own approximately 450 vacant parcels in the district and can produce between 6,000 and 29,000 new homes. They just need that little bit of help and nudge to get there. So through this RFA, the district will award $1 million in the form of a grant to the successful applicant, and it must be used to support a minimum of 10 faith-based institutions. The RFA grantee will fund assistance, including pre-development, grants and loans, and technical assistance to faith-based institutions to assist them in moving an idea from concept to actually getting out of the ground and building units for our residents. So we know this works. We've seen it right here in the district, and we've looked at other cities that go this route too. This includes Denver, that uses unused church parking lots in several opportunities to produce affordable units. But besides that, this is yet another tool in our toolbox to make sure that we produce quality, affordable units for residents, whether they've been here all their lives or for 5 minutes, as the mayor says. So this is another tool to add to what we already do. And again, thank you, Mayor Bowser, for the vision to putting more tools in our toolbox for our residents. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, we've said a lot. And what it amounts to is that we're doing everything humanly possible to create more affordable housing across the district and make sure more Washingtonians participate in the prosperity of our beautiful city. I was supposed to mention earlier, and I'll say it now and then take your questions, first press, then community, is that we will also be releasing a request for proposals for multi-family property owners in the Rock Creek West planning area. We want to ask them what it will take to put affordability covenants of at least 15 years on their properties in exchange for the city's investment. Okay, so look for that in January. With that, any questions? Press questions? Hello.
Hey, Mayor, I'm glad you mentioned the covenants because I understand that the council funded a pilot program for this through the GAIN Act. I think it was $5 million. Is that using this money, or is this a new effort related to affordability covenants?
I don't know if it's using that money, but we'll get back to you on that. Any other questions? Yes. Okay, I'll take your question, and then last call for the press. Ma'am, let me come back to you when I finish the press questions. Yes.
Hi, Megan Cloherty, WTOP. I wanted to get your reaction on the DFS audit that you commissioned that came back this week and was released to the public this week. We understand that there's going to be a lot of evidence that has to be reviewed because of possibly faulty science in the firearms unit, in the fingerprints unit. We spoke with Director Geldhart, and he said there's a possibility this could affect thousands of cases, possibly overturning convictions. We haven't heard from you yet on it. I wanted to get your reaction.
You have heard from me. I issued a mayor's order on Monday after I received the report that I commissioned to examine any concerns with the Department of Forensic Sciences. So I have a pretty detailed report. I have directed the deputy mayor to convene a working group among our clients and any other D.C. government agencies to make sure we're looking through the recommendations of that report. We do expect, as you know, everyone should, that we review any cases that have been implicated by the report to make sure the administration of justice has been just, and we're committed to doing that. Yes.
Mayor, I'm wondering if you have any reaction to the increase in non-contact shootings that we've been having around the city. I know last night we had 2 or 3, and lots of residents, tweeting about how, they're feeling unsafe, and they want to know if there's anything that can be done for these. As I understand, it's like people just shooting up in the air multiple times and, startling people, essentially.
You've heard me say many times that we have to get to every illegal gun in our city, and we have to do it very quickly, and that we'll throw every resource at the problem until we bend the curve on violence, just like we have done with our emergency response to COVID. We're exploring every approach, including law enforcement, in which I feel very strongly that we have to maintain the level of law enforcement members that we need to respond to increases in violence. I'm working with the council to make sure that we can reinvest in our public safety resources, especially at MPD. The chief a few weeks ago also announced an initiative that I hope people are very focused on. And you can send tips to NPD anonymously. You may receive up to a $7,500 reward, 7500, for helping us remove an illegal gun off the streets of D.C. So I'm asking people to be very, very responsive to that. We are going to be wrapping up our fall crime initiative areas. There have been, I think, 4 or 5 areas across the city where we've experienced gun violence. And that crime initiative has been very successful in driving down all the incidents of gunfire. So the chief will be talking to us more specifically about how we're refocusing that very significant investment in police resources for January and beyond.
You mentioned that, the funding piece and being able to afford to hire more officers. I know that last week you released that the federal government gave us some money. Is that enough, or do you still think that there's more funding needed from the council and to keep this
we
up?
will advance our budget request. So I'm going to tell you this, and I tell everybody listening. My job is to tell the D.C. Council what we need in terms of all resources for the agencies, including the Metropolitan Police Department, and we're going to continue to do that. If it's necessary, as it was in the summer and remains so, I have authorized the Chief of Police to use the overtime necessary to make up for the diminished number of officers. And we're going to continue to do that and make sure that we rather not use overtime. We rather have enough people. So this year's budget will reflect that as well.
I have one more on DFS and then one
Sure.
on topic on affordable housing. Mayor, back to this DFS thing. 8 of the 10 root causes of the lab's problems involve executive leadership. You appointed the lab director and the former senior deputy director, who's now been moved to another agency. Does part of this responsibility fall on you if this is going to management?
Any issue in D.C. government points to me. Okay, I'm the boss. And so if there is a problem identified in any D.C. government agency, you can rest assured that I will be the mover to fix it.
On affordable housing.
Yep.
One more. Thanks. I just think it's interesting that we're in Chevy Chase. I used to be a resident of Chevy Chase. I love this community, and I know there's a lot of support for affordable housing here. This is probably one of the most expensive places to live in D.C. So I think it's, I was wondering if somebody could speak to that, just sort of frankly, the irony of it, to people who don't live in this area. And if you can say what specifically in this specific spot, and maybe Mr. Trublay did, about what's going in here and how it will be affordable.
We expect to transform this campus. We don't know exactly how yet, but each of these buildings, the community center and the public library, are funded, or we've started their funding, they'll probably tell me, for replacement. So as we think about how to replace or renovate these buildings, we will seek a development partner, and we will outline what the government wants. We want a new library, a fantastic, amazing one, a new community center, and we want housing on the property. So we don't know yet how many units or what it's going to look like. We're at the very beginning of the process. Even before that happens, however, the community is engaged with the Office on Planning on the small area plan for Chevy Chase that includes this area, and some of the decisions about density and all of the things that go to determine what can be built where are being discussed in that process. I expect the Office of Planning to deliver a report to the council, they tell me, in the spring. And I should acknowledge our Councilwoman for Housing at Large, Councilmember Anita Bonds. Please acknowledge Anita Bonds. All right, are there any other press questions? All right, community questions. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayor. It's a pleasure to see you, and thank you for all your good work. I've lived here for more than 40 years, I can't believe it, as a renter, but in this community. I fully support the inclusiveness in reaching out to people who could not afford the market rates. However, as a renter, there are challenges, especially when folks with vouchers move in. And can you talk about how the Department of Human Services, how the housing folks can help people adjust to environments that they may not be used to, how they can get support for mental health challenges, and how everybody can be much more delighted for a more inclusive community?
Well, thank you for that question. And it's true that we have, the city supports a lot of subsidy by way of vouchers for a lot of Washingtonians. And some people in that category, they don't need supportive services. They just need the economic support. To be able to afford housing. But others have acute needs, and it's our job to evaluate them beforehand and connect them with city services, whether they're for behavioral health, job training, whether they're to meet with their primary care doctor, to connect their children to school, all of those efforts. So we're very focused in working with our housing partners as we distribute vouchers to make sure that those services are also included.
All I can do is plead that the case managers really reach out to folks. I think sometimes that falls by the wayside.
Okay, I appreciate that note, and I take it seriously. Yes.
I monitored them. I made sure they took their medicine. I made sure that their kids went.
Okay, what's your question, ma'am?
I made sure that they weren't causing disturbances. And we're very concerned that the social workers, and I'm a social worker, are nowhere helping these families. We put them in these apartments with just a bed, so we in the apartments are giving them linen and furniture and everything, but nobody's monitoring them. Their kids aren't going to school sometimes. They pulled the fire alarm so many times in my apartment last Friday. The fire department said they won't come anymore because it's a real fire. They threw furniture out of the window that hit my window, and the police told me that they wouldn't come, that it was only against the law to throw heavy things out the window if it had killed somebody. And they're not, we're feeding them, we're helping them, but the city is failing them. They are not, the social workers, and I'm a social worker for 40 years, are not checking up on them. They're not making sure that they have health care. They're not making sure they have food or furniture. And those of us who are cancer survivors and seniors are being endangered because they don't wear masks. And they get aggressive if you ask them to wear a mask in a common area. You're feeling the renters. And I want to acknowledge Anita Bonds, who's been with the renters for decades. And you're feeling the families because you're not giving them the wraparound services they need to make them successful. And we want some answers about making affordable housing in these rental properties on Connecticut Avenue safe for everybody, for the formerly homeless, and for those of us who are seniors or longtime renters or cancer survivors. Please, please get the city involved to help these families. Please, that's my concern.
I got it. Thank you for your feedback, ma'am. And we'll get your specific information on specific cases. And I want to make sure, because among rental housing, among home ownership housing, among people who need services and among people who don't, I want us to be careful that we don't say that everybody that the city is supporting is disruptive or bad, or that there aren't disruptive and bad tenants that aren't I know you didn't, but I want to emphasize that, okay, because that's not what any of us are saying or want to convey. But what I hear directly is that we haven't done a good enough job with support, and so let's figure out how we can fix that. You got it. Okay, I see. I'm going to take... There's 3 in that group with their hands up. So I'm going to take 1 here. You all decide. And you asked already, and then you, ma'am. Okay, over here. Okay, there's a question about the Wortman. Got it. Who was second? Thank you.
Do you have any information of affordable housing in a different district? And if you have, what is the planning for those districts?
For all of the wards, you mean, ma'am? Right. So we do, and in the roadmap, there should be a listing. Oh, this one is just on Rock Creek West. And part of the reason why we're highlighting it is because when John talked to you about the progress that we've made on our goal to get to 36,000 and 12,000 affordable, all of the other planning areas have advanced in some way, with some units delivered. We haven't advanced at all in Rock Creek West, and so that's why we're very focused on the roadmap to get there. I think your number is like 1,900.
It was a very quick mention on television that you have a planning for the 15th Street Northwest. Is that true, or is it just a comment on the...
Oh, we have plans up for the entire city. We'll share those with you.
Street Northwest.
Okay.
That was mentioned on television.
I got it. All right, your question.
Thank you, Mayor Bowser. My name is Lisa Gore. I'm one of the commissioners on ANC 34G.
Commissioner, nice to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you for the announcement yesterday on Connecticut Avenue. That was something we worked hard for. But my question for you is, why is the affordability covenant on the multifamily that you mentioned a 15-year affordability covenant? That doesn't seem long enough.
Oh, that is a standard kind of term when these buildings are going to financing. The kind of a standard term is 15, sometimes they're 30, and it's a standard term. But what is not fixed in our thinking, we'll look at some of the ideas that come back in the request for proposals and shape a program moving forward. Okay, what if I take 3 more? I'll stick around for a couple more questions. One here, Samantha. Yes. And okay. Yes. Last question. Okay.
Hi, thank you. My question is regarding Connecticut Avenue and the new plan, which I think was announced last night by Mr. Trublay. And I was kind of shocked to see it that this went through, that there will eliminate parking on both sides of the street and go down to 2 lanes each way, because I think most people in the neighborhood probably don't know that, and there wasn't really any community input besides maybe Mr. Speck, but and there wasn't notice, and we are shocked by it, and we want to know, is this really a done deal? And there's a lot of seniors who consider this very ageist and ableist for people who need to drive. Not everybody can bicycle, and it seems to be the maybe younger people pushing out older folks who have lived here a long time and expecting them to bicycle to the supermarket. And I think we're all kind of shocked by it. So,
well, it's been long discussed, more than 2 years. We have presented alternatives to the community, and 4 ANCs have endorsed it. Your council member has endorsed it. We have, believe me, I've kicked the tires on it, not to use a transportation like reference, and our analysis is that it is going to help mobility, make it safer, and serve businesses and the people who are using the surrounding area. I will also note that we spent 2 years really looking at how we can use our public space differently. This COVID has taught us some lessons, not all of them bad. And one of them is that DC residents really want to share the roads. They want to be able to use them for recreation. They want to be able to use them for streeteries and dining. And they want to be able to use them for different travel modes. And so now our challenge is to design a really great project, to be very intentional about it, to take in feedback of ways to mitigate the trade-offs. And the fact is, here's the truth, DC, that everything that we do moving forward about increased mobility sharing, having more bike lanes, having more bike parking, having more places for people to recreate, it's going to involve some trade-offs. So we have to be very intentional in the planning. I was reading some of the comments. Somebody said 18 months is too long for planning. But that's what it's going to take for us to thoughtfully mitigate the trade-offs for the proposal. So to your question, we have selected one of the alternatives. C is the alternative, and we will begin engaging on the very detailed work that goes into making that happen to mitigate as many of the trade-offs as possible. Yes, Samantha.
The guns shooting up in the air.
Yep.
It's my understanding from the being on the chief's CIC that shooting a gun into the air is a misdemeanor currently, and that the CIC's recommendation was that it become a felony, because when one gun goes off, not only is it disturbing to the neighborhood, but often other guns follow, because it's seen sometimes as turf war.
Yep.
And would like it to be a more serious crime than just a misdemeanor.
I would support you in that. We will have some conversations with members of the council, but we also have to have conversations with the United States Attorney, who is unlikely to prosecute it. So I'll take that under advisement. The other thing I should mention about that kind of, what we see it as is kind of testing, unfortunately. We collect those shell casings. And that helps us with other investigations if that gun is involved in a crime. Yes.
Welcome, Mayor.
Thank you.
Back to the neighborhood. I'm Peter Gosselin. I'm a commissioner on the ANC. I'm speaking.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I'm only speaking for myself.
Yes.
We've been involved in the small area planning process now for a year. One of the questions that I've asked repeatedly, and others I think have too, is what's your view of what our fair share of the 1,990 affordable housing units for Rock Creek West? What's Chevy Chase DC's fair share?
I don't think that we didn't get down to that level by neighborhood or by ANC area. That's the answer.
just say it would make the politics of getting change to happen much easier if we had something other than abstract concepts
Okay.
and a gargantuan number.
What's your view of Chevy Chase's fair share?
I'm learning as we go along.
Okay.
I mean,
Good
and-
answer.
And here is a place where I do agree that we need to do something. and
Right.
We have the opportunity, but it has made it very hard to do the community engagement.
I got it.
When we don't have any sense of whether it's all on us or.
Let me think about that a little bit more. I think that we could give you some, like a round number. I think what Andrew laid out in terms of the commercial areas, the targets along both Connecticut and Wisconsin will give us some idea, kind of back of the envelope. So let us do that. Did I call on you? Okay. I'm going to sneak you in, and then this is the last question. Okay.
It's just a plea.
Okay.
As a leader, focus gives you an ability to draw in resources and accomplish something.
Yes.
I'd like to plea also for integration. When you come in with one focus, it becomes difficult in terms of development. And you have DDOT going one way on transportation, planning for housing in another, and some of us are very concerned about the small businesses in a commercial strip. So getting those together would be challenging in any regard, but I just have a plea for that because we tear up a street one minute, we build on it the next minute, and it's not together.
I got it. I appreciate that statement. Okay, last one.
Go to the mic.
He's coming. I was going to just take one more question because we were standing here a while.
Yes. I'm sorry. You can't go in front of the young lady who has a comment, who's been called on. I'm happy to talk to you, Commissioner.
Let me make sure.
Hi, yes, I'm a resident of DC, and a lot of my fellow friends, we did the IZ certification course, and it's taken a long time for us to find an apartment or get approved because it's like a lottery. Sometimes you get picked, sometimes you don't, and a lot of your DC residents are facing evictions right now, and it's difficult for them. I'm sorry, I'm nervous.
That's okay.
It's difficult for them because, they have children.
Yep.
And some of them have been on the housing list, and they've been on there for years, and they don't know what to do. What's the next step? They call the housing number, and they just keep getting transferred from person to person. So what can you tell us as a community that's going to help not only Rock Creek area, but the rest of Washington, D.C.?
I got it. I understand your question, and I thank you for being specific about IZ. I've gotten some feedback lately about how we can improve the process for people who have gone through what it takes to apply and be selected and speed that process up. So I have some ideas I'm going to work with OP on so that more people are in the selection process and move through more quickly. I have housing providers telling me they can't get people enough, and I have people tell me they can't get selected quick enough. So let me finish. We're going to work on that. In terms of evictions, I hope everybody knows that we have a program that distributed $330 million to people who had back rent. more than 20,000 people were able to take advantage of that. So the mitigation of evictions has been dramatic in the district. We've used that money, but we've asked the federal government for another $220 million for people who are experiencing emergencies. So we hope to get an affirmative answer to that. We still have local programs, emergency rental assistance programs for DC residents too. So people have to apply. I feel very certain that we have enough resources out there to help people who qualify. Okay, I said that was the last question, so I'm going to stick around and answer some individual questions until I have to take off. But thank you, Chevy Chase. We look forward to working with you.